What do you call a stock exchange that's losing companies faster than it's gaining them, that can't even fix its basic settlement system after a decade of trying, and that's watching other exchanges steal its best prospects? You call it the ASX. And if you're invested here, you need to know what's really happening. The ASX is shrinking. And as a financial advisor of 20 years, the decline has been frustrating to watch because we should be the regional exchange powerhouse of Asia. We're in the perfect time zone. We've got the regulatory framework and we've got the superannuation funds. But instead, Hong Kong is stealing that position because they're innovating while we're stuck in the past. In this video, I'll show you long-term evidence that the ASX is shrinking. I'll show you how other exchanges are pulling ahead, and we'll explore why Australian innovation is stalling structurally, not just episodically. And most importantly, what it means for your investments and how to protect yourself. Because while the ASX is shrinking, there are still incredible opportunities if you know where to look. Part 1, the evidence. ASX is actually shrinking. Let's start with the cold hard facts. Australia's listing base keeps shrinking. According to ASIC's own research, over the past decade, the number of listed equity issuers on the ASX has dropped from 2,073 in 2014 down to 1,920 by August 2025. This by definition means more delistings and takeovers than new listings. We're still moving backwards while our peers add breadth. IPO capital raising has plunged and the value of IPOs on the ASX dropped from 22.9 billion in 2014 to 4.2 billion in 2024. That's an 82% fall, while private equity, real estate and private credit are all up sharply. We're getting fewer, bigger deals rather than broad revival of listing activity. Just 2 weeks ago, Locate Technologies announced they're moving their listing to the New Zealand Stock Exchange because they wanted flexibility for a Bitcoin treasury strategy that the ASX couldn't accommodate. Then there's CSL, who delisted from the ASX in January 2024, citing low liquidity and high compliance costs. With most of its operations already in the US, the ASX had become a burden. Just months later, the decision paid off for CSL as they surged to a $7 billion US valuation on the NASDAQ, becoming one of the most surprising comeback stories in the buy now, pay later space. And it's not just about the number of companies. Trading liquidity is terrible. ASIC's own data shows that the ASX on order book share is sitting at 56%, with about 20% of trades happening off market. And all this data reflects in our share of the global market capitalization, which dropped from about 1.7% in 2014 to 1.4% in 2024. That's while the Australian market was near its record high in AUD terms. So what does this mean for you as an investor? It means when you want to buy or sell, especially in smaller companies, you're going to struggle to get a fair price. The market depth just isn't there anymore. Part 2, the innovation gap, why we're falling behind. While NASDAQ has returned a 15% annual return over the last 5 years, the ASX has delivered a solid 9% annual return, which is still good. But these returns may not last if we continue to lag behind global markets in innovation, technology listings, and infrastructure upgrades. The CHESS replacement saga. The ASX started trying to replace the CHESS settlement system in 2016 with its grand distributed ledger technology plan. They spent millions, faced delays, and then completely paused it in November 2022. Now they've got a new plan with new vendors, and we're looking at the first release in the first half of 2026. Think about that. They've been working on this basic infrastructure upgrade for the better part of a decade, and we're still waiting. While they're fumbling around with settlement systems, other exchanges are racing ahead with real innovation. What other exchanges are getting right? While the ASX fumbles with the chess, Hong Kong is innovating fast. They launched a dual currency trading system in 2023, letting stocks settle in either Hong Kong dollars or Chinese yuan. Their Synapse platform uses smart contracts to make it easier for global managers to access mainland Chinese markets. And Chapter 18C opened the door for pre-profit tech companies to list. They're building the future while we're patching the past. Meanwhile, the NASDAQ has built a global listing pipeline that actively hunts for the best companies worldwide. They offer co-marketing, analyst education, and index inclusion roadmaps. The best global companies list there for valuation, liquidity, and prestige, joining the ranks of Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, and it's working. In the first half of 2025, 62% of US IPOs came from foreign companies, a record high, up from just 16% in 2021. The US is moving toward 24-hour trading. CBOE has announced plans for 24/5 trading, the NYSE 22/5, and NASDAQ is working towards 24-hour capability. Retail brokers like Schwab already offer extensive overnight sessions. The world is moving to always-on markets with innovative structures, while the ASX is still operating like it's 1995, running more like a rent-seeking toll road operator than a profit-orientated exchange. We've had a monopoly on primary listings, so we've gotten lazy. And here's the thing that should really terrify every ASX executive. Companies don't even need to list anymore to raise capital. Assets under management in private capital funds almost tripled from 57 billion in 2014 to 150 billion in 2024. Examples are Canva or Atlassian before they went public. Private equity and venture capital can provide the funding, and secondary markets can provide liquidity. The ASX used to be the only game in town. Now it's just one poor option among many. And if you want to learn more about how to access the more innovative markets, click the link below. Part 3, Australia's innovation crisis. The bigger picture. The ASX's problems are just a symptom of a much bigger issue. Australia's falling behind in innovation, and the numbers tell the story. Australia's business R&D spending is stuck at 0.9% of GDP, well below OECD peers. We rank 22nd in the Global Innovation Index. Our robot density in manufacturing lags behind leaders like China and Germany, and national experts warn we lack sovereign AI compute infrastructure, calling it a strategic risk. The ASX remains heavily skewed to resources and financials. It's structurally stuck in yesterday's economy. With flat R&D spending and slow automation adoption, the feedback loop between universities, startups, and public markets is weaker than in leading ecosystems. Companies either train offshore or relocate, pulling value and eventually listings elsewhere. The problem compounds itself. Without a vibrant public market to provide exit opportunities, venture capital becomes less attractive. Without strong VC funding, fewer startups scale to IPO-ready size. And without IPO candidates, the exchange has less incentive to innovate. It's a vicious cycle. Until we fix both the innovation ecosystem and the market structure that supports it, we'll keep losing our best companies to overseas exchanges. Part 4, the regulatory response. Too little, too late. There are signs that regulators are finally waking up, but the big question is it too little, too late? ASIC kicked off a 2-year fast-track IPO pilot in June 2025 to reduce the friction and delays. They're also reviewing CBOE Australia's application to become a listings market. If approved, it would break the ASX's monopoly, and competition has a funny way of making monopolies suddenly discover innovation. Meanwhile, the chess replacement saga continues. The RBA is now pressuring the ASX to deliver phase 1 in early 2026. If they can actually pull it off, a big if, it would finally remove one of the major risks hanging over the market. The ASX is now only just considering dual-class share structures, something Hong Kong, London, and New York have offered for years. Once again, we're playing catch-up. But there is some progress from the Australian government on competition policy. From January 2026, we're getting mandatory merger clearance and banning non-compete clauses by 2027, with the goal to create a more competitive market for Aussie businesses. These are positive steps, but they address symptoms rather than root causes. And my concern is that these are reactive measures. We're responding to problems instead of leading with solutions. Hong Kong didn't wait for their market to shrink before innovating. They innovated to prevent it from shrinking. Real change requires more aggressive action. The ASX needs to be proactively hunting for new IPOs globally, not just waiting for companies to come to them. They need to slash compliance costs using technology and best-of-breed solutions. And as a country dominated by oligopolies and monopolies, the government needs laws that actually encourage innovation, competition, and small business growth. The current structure of both ASX and the Australian political climate do not give us much reason for hope in the near term. Part 5. So what does this mean for your investments? Now, while the ASX is shrinking, there are still incredible incredible opportunities if you know where to look. The world's most innovative and high-performing markets are booming. China's leading in manufacturing automation. America's dominating AI with companies like Nvidia, and emerging markets are driving global growth. But here's the beautiful part. You can access all of these opportunities through ASX listed ETFs. In fact, this is one part of the market which is actually growing. And you don't need to open overseas accounts or deal with foreign exchange complexity. This is why I'm so passionate about ETFs. They give you access to markets and themes that you simply can't get through individual ASX stocks. When the ASX lacks breadth and trading liquidity, ETFs provide the solution. You can invest in the NASDAQ 100 through an ASX listed ETF. You can get exposure to global cybersecurity companies, to Indian growth stocks, to clean energy themes, to AI and robotics, all through the ASX. And as US venues extend their trading hours, you'll get more chances to time entries and exits around earnings and macro news. So is the ASX dying? The evidence suggests it's certainly shrinking and losing relevance. But that doesn't mean Australian investors are doomed. The key is to think globally while investing locally. Use the ASX as your platform, but don't limit yourself to Australian companies. The world's best investment opportunities are available to you through ETFs, and the smart money is starting to take notice. And if you want to stay ahead of those trends and discover the ETF opportunities that most Australian investors are missing, make sure you're subscribed to my weekly newsletter. The link's in the description with 20% off annual plans. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.